Nope. I think. All
All
right.
right.
So give it a second, and then let's see if this works.
Okay.
But we kind of have to talk just to make sure this is
Whoa! Holy cow! Yeah, that. Oh, I turned that down. Oh my god.
okay.
Did it work?
I would say the volume seems pretty good.
All right.
Doesn't
Well,
sound too out of place.
well, if that's the case, and you say we can get started.
All right. Well, Vast, you're playing. Why don't you lead us in?
Hey, everybody! This is Fast Empires. I am joined by Scorch
Hi.
and Arcadius Zero.
Peasant.
This is
Peasant.
peasants. This is the
I
Durnami
said
Gaming.
present, not peasants.
Oh.
My gosh.
I like that though. I like it.
Anyways,
Yeah.
welcome, folks.
We do a thing. It's a podcast. We sometimes talk about gaming and news and other things that are going on in popular culture, but not so much. Today, all three of us have, in some form, uh, decided that we are going to discuss the Avengers beta, our first impressions, our long term ideas of what's going on with the studios, and basically, is it worth your time? So, Scorch, take it away.
Hey, like Vast said, we all played the Avengers beta. Some of us, well, kind of to varying degrees. Arcadius, I believe, only played the intro sequence with the Golden Gate Bridge, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I got through all the characters, the whole sequence reel, before it was like, nope, you have to do all this Square Enix account stuff to play, and the rest of it hadn't downloaded yet in time, so kind of
Yeah.
missed it, but I got the general feel of all the characters and if you can call it a combo system, the the alternating modes of attack that you could use
Yeah.
of what they had available. So yeah, a little bit, not like full blown gameplay, but enough
Yeah.
to get a taste.
I played, I played through that, and I played probably an afternoon's worth of Black Widow. And Vast played way more than us. I'd say she was around a couple of afternoons worth of play with multiple characters and multiple parties.
This is true. I actually played the previous weekend during the pre-order beta that was exclusive to PlayStation. And I have a group of awesome friends, or one specific friend, who is a fan of Marvel in the Marvel universe, and we're more than likely. I'm still on track to play that game with them.
At least a little
Maybe.
bit.
So let me ask you this, Vast. To lead off with first impressions, would you be purchasing this game without that friend?
So here's the thing. Here's the real honest truth. Probably not. I have discussed this with you guys before, and it basically boils down to the fact that despite Marvel Avengers being such a huge hot property, um, I am not that into them as a team or characters, and despite how I so far I've enjoyed the gameplay, there's not a lot going on in the single player. And granted, they only gave us a couple missions, the prologue and a couple missions, like two or three, in the single player campaign that really has me excited. And it's because I'm not that big of a fan of the Avengers. I liked the movies. I saw almost all of them, but I'm just not, I'm
Yeah.
just not there for them. And if to me, if you're not there for the characters, it might be a pretty hard sell.
Well, coming from the other side, I personally am a fan of the Avengers. I like all the I've not read all the comics, but I like all the comics that I've read. I like the characters of the Avengers, and I've loved the movies. However, this game, when I fired it up and started playing the individual characters, everything was stiff. It did not have a, I guess, the level of character fluidity that you read about and or have seen in the movies. And at first it was kind of jarring, but I kind of just accepted it and moved on with the pace of the rest of the game and how it was kind of doling out these characters one at a time. I think it was mentioned before that it was pretty predictable, and that kind of took away any like mystery or excitement of the game. It was kind of like, bad guys are here. All right, time to go pound that bad guy, and then you go pound that bad guy, and that's kind of all there was to it. The uh, the way that you're able to move about the levels is very channeled, I would say, and you don't have a lot of options. You're just kind of on the railroad tracks that they set for you to play their game. And with everyone having a stiff, comparatively stiff personality, voice line setup, and missions to pick from, and the types of enemies you fight, it's just nowhere near as interesting as some of the other video games in its class.
I think that's pretty true.
Hmm.
Even when you get away from the super on rails tutorial of the Golden Gate Bridge, I would say that it doesn't open up that much afterwards. The areas that they give you to run around in as a party, like when I played with Vast for a little bit, is essentially we're gonna plop you in this half-mile long canyon that
Yeah, like
is
that's the level, right? The
that
canyon.
is that is a different color depending on if it's forest or snow
Hmm.
or actual canyon. And there are bad guys here, and you can choose to beat up said bad guys, or you could go and get loot. But at the end of the day, you're probably gonna have to beat up the bad guys. And it doesn't really matter who you choose because you still just beat up the bad guys in the same way. Um, I think Vast with a little bit more character knowledge and play uh, might push back against this, but I didn't really see whole lot of change between these characters, and it felt like there was only so much that they could do with all of the characters, and it wasn't enough to differentiate them between like different styles of play.
And on that kind of same trailing topic, I honestly think they recycled a lot of the action like archetypes, and that's why they feel samey, is to save costs and time on the development. You can sort of see how they took the same initiation, the timing of some of the movesets, and made them only just unique enough to what people have seen them do in the movies, and that was it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to push back on that, and say I can I can I actually can't really see that right now because there aren't a lot of mirror characters, I guess maybe is the term, that's in the game so
Hmm.
far. They may be introduced, but I think what we're seeing right now with your so let's take a step back. The characters that you start out with this in this game are going to be Black Widow, Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, and
And the Hulk.
Hulk.
Yep.
Okay,
What
and
about Kamala Khan?
yeah, I was just about to say, those are like the five of the six original Avengers, and then you have Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. So those are the characters that you're starting with. Right now, the um, in my humble opinion, your character attacks feel and look different enough to be unique to the character. Your button combinations are not. Um, and I say this as someone who has played the most recent Marvel Alliance game on the Switch, where your combinations and your move sets um, are almost mirrored in all of the characters that you have. Like it is very,
Mm.
very little differentiation between a character class. So if you're playing Storm and you're playing who is like a flying character who does projectiles, you may use lightning bolts, but your attack looks and feels almost exactly like the Scarlet Witch, which is another character who flies and has like, you know, long range magic attacks. Like it looks and feels the exact same. The
Shooty
only
bits.
difference is
Yep.
yes, the only
Huh.
difference is the skin, the character skin.
Interesting.
And so when you
Okay.
say like they're
Okay.
samey, when you say that you're samey, I'm like, well, maybe, but compared to like these other things, no, not at all.
The other one is even more samey.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that I do think that they've put a lot of time and effort to make these base characters feel very different because they're going to be the ones that you start with. And while they have mentioned that they're going to have other characters in the game, we're going to be with these original 6 at least until I'm thinking like post holiday, unless they
Probably.
do something,
Yeah.
unless they do something special. But I don't think we're going to get any. I don't think we're going to get. We know we're getting Hawkeye, but I don't think we're getting Hawkeye anytime soon. And then apparently there's been some data mining that says they're going to get She-Hulk and War Machine and um,
Well, that would
Kate
seem easy.
Bishop.
You're just going to reskin Iron Man and Hulk to
Yep.
then change the moves a little, and then it's the same.
So
Yeah.
that's the reskin, and I think also they're doing that. So it's a multiplayer, campaign, and that'll
Correct.
allow you to have
Two
two
Hulks, you know.
Hulks on the team if you both enjoy that kind of play style. So I can kind of see why they're doing those. I don't know what you call them, like
Yeah.
legacy characters, or that are within that same character mold.
Yeah.
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 Also, I might be ever so slightly jaded coming off of Ghost of Tsushima, which has
Woo!
an amazing move set.
Woo!
So it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like falling down the ladder a couple rungs to play, and that's probably some of that feeling.
Well, the other, like when I was playing with my friend before, during the pre-order beta, I actually said, "Wow, this is weird. I'm just finished playing Ghost of Tsushima, and I am a parry god in that game. Parrying in this game doesn't feel as good or as what's another word? Good or as
Fulfilling,
Rewarding.
satisfying.
yeah, rewarding and satisfying as it does in those games. Like I enjoy being, dodging with the Hulk and feeling like a smooth operator, but it's not as rewarding. It's really not.
Yeah, what I will have to say about the movesets between those two games, and honestly, you guys, we're comparing apples to oranges.
Oh
here.
yeah,
I
and we
know.
know it. We know
I just
it.
anecdotally said it because that is part of my jarring introduction into the game. Is like, wait a minute, this is not at all what I've even close to what I've been playing recently. So it
Yeah.
took a few moments to readjust.
Well, the thing about Ghost of Tsushima is that the move set is like an intrinsic, almost instinctual thing that you pick up through play. It doesn't outwardly tell you this is the combo for this, this is the combo for that.
Correct.
It doesn't
correct.
really work like that. Where Marvel Avengers is like, press square 4 times for a series of light attacks, and then press triangle for the heavy attack. That kind of thing.
Or hold triangle for a charged heavy attack.
Yeah, your super is ready. Hit R1. That
Yeah.
kind of thing.
But but don't you think that's also the all ages aspect of the game,
Correct.
as opposed
It is.
to
It is.
I
As
will agree
opposed-
with that.
yeah, as opposed to Ghost of Tsushima, and we're not comparing the two. We're not comparing the two.
No.
Simply stating
not.
that probably has something to do with my current view of the game, of what I played, and
Yeah.
what it felt like immediately jumping from a game like that to this one.
And like I said with Vast before, this game is Marvel Avengers is probably not geared towards me specifically. It's more of a general audience kind of game.
Yeah.
And the general audience is not going to have the same like video game bend that I do because seeing as how we have a podcast and shit and it's been going for years without any like super amount of traction or anything, I would like to think that I know a little bit more, and a bit more than others, but like the general people that play on console are like the people that play FIFA and the people that play COD. And this might be kind of casting a net in more in that direction than somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there. It is a game that's built for a mass audience, and that mass audience is one, people who enjoy the Marvel film series, specifically the Avengers, and two, people who are fans of Marvel in general. So, comic book fans. And we
Yeah.
know that it's also geared towards comic book fans because there's a lot of comic book shoutouts and tie-ins. The most present being Kamala Khan being included in the game. She is not yet in the MCU, although I know she's getting her own television series, which I'm kind of excited to see.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so that's where that is. Did we? So we talked a little bit about the the prologue on Rails place where they introduce all the characters to you in your first move sets.
Uh-huh.
What do we think about like the character modeling and stuff? Because that was a big issue for some people that they weren't licensed. Um, they didn't license the actors' um, visages or faces or whatever
Li-
the proper term is.
like, like, make the Avengers look like they did in the movies. Is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't license Chris Evans' image to create Captain America.
Yeah. I don't have that much of a problem with that since they have so much of a backlog to pull from and
Yeah.
so many designs to pull from. I don't mind that they went off in a different direction. That doesn't bother me at all.
So that was a little jarring at first, but when I started looking at, for example, Iron Man, I realized he was actually modeled visually closer to the comics. So I was
Mhm.
okay with it at that point.
Yeah.
I could see that they were basically pulling traits from the comics and not necessarily the actors. So it was sort of, not necessarily creating an instance that would date the game as much, since that would be, current with the times,
Mhm.
but more of a standalone, here is the representation of original comic character, Iron Man, Captain America. Hulk has always looked like the Hulk, and
Yeah.
then the Black Widow.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I will say that my gripe with this game is not in the look of the characters or the
No.
particle effects or the art or anything like that. That is beautiful. The artists and all of that did a bang up job making this game look beautiful for what it is. And it really is pretty nice to look at most of the time. It's just
Oh, what,
like,
can we pause real quick? Just because
okay.
I always say this, but I want to make sure I get it in at the right place. This is the first game where I was honestly looking at and impressed with the idle animations for the characters.
Oh yeah.
I really liked them. I thought that they did such a good job with that. Okay, that's all I want to say.
Yeah. Like little touches like that are not lost on us. We I enjoy the way the characters look. I enjoy all of the physics they put into, for example, Kamala Khan's scarf that she has in her bag and things like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it flows in a pretty natural way. Um, the colors are vibrant, and you find saturation where you'd expect to find saturation, and you would expect to find more bleached colors where you find more bleached colors and stuff like that. It looks really nice. My gripe is when it comes to level layout and the bad guys you fight
Hmm.
and the movesets.
Yeah.
And it's not enough for me to actually like look at it and say, yeah, I can get behind this because I've already seen this. And I've already seen it back in like 2002 with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man game.
Yeah, so get into that. Get into the level layout and the enemy types because that is a smaller part of my issue with the game, but like it definitely feeds into my issues with the game.
Yeah. So, uh, there was a part in the tutorial with Captain America. Captain America's in this room, and bad guys stream in through the windows or whatever the fuck, and they're like normal dudes, and you beat up those guys, and a door breaks down, and like more little guys come in with a couple of larger dudes, right? And you dispatch them, and then there's like three heavy guys that come in. That kind of
Drip feed.
enemy progression along with the same kind of entrances to the level that that enemy progression has is so reminiscent of the way the 2002 Spider-Man game worked. It is uncanny. Like
I'd call it a
that's exactly the way they introduced all the bad guys. That's exactly how every stage worked. That's like to a T what I saw 18 years ago, you
Oof.
guys.
5. It wasn't that
yeah.
long ago. It wasn't that long ago. We're not old. I'm not old. I'm not. I'm not old.
And
Basically,
I,
they drip feed you the enemies.
yeah, I totally recognize that there's only so many things that you can do about like fighting a select amount of a horde of guys in a specific area. But it's not like I don't feel anything with that interaction. Like
Seems a
to
little hollow for you.
to reach into something that I feel like is um a little bit more comparative to this game, and I say a little bit more, it's not all the way. God, no, it's not all the way. Is the way God of War does like bad guy hordes and how they interact with your character and all of that is way, way better and with fewer people on screen.
Mm.
The way, like, that representation right there with Kratos and his axe and maybe two or three guys on screen, but you know there are more if you pan around, is much more intense, much more personal look into the same style of gameplay than there's Captain America, oh there's six guys, he's gonna beat up the six guys. Like it doesn't feel good the way they have the bad guy experience, if that makes sense.
They
Hmm.
kind of just reveal it all at once. There is no like, well, how many more is there? Is there one more after this one? Is there one more after this one? No, it's like, here's a 6, done. Beat him
Well,
up.
let me ask you about this then, because this game might be slightly more comparable. How does it compare to the way that enemy hordes and types were um, presented to you in the most recent Spider-Man game?
Most recent Spider-Man game,
Since we
I
mentioned
would
Spider-Man before.
say, yeah, I would say that it's kind of similar, but then again, in Spider-Man, you have multiple factions of people that all have different traits, and
Mm-hmm.
the dynamicness if I can get away with using that word, of the way that you can approach each fight with that version of Spider-Man is much more diverse than the way that you can approach a fight dynamically with any character in Marvel Avengers. Can you see where I'm coming from
Hmm.
in that?
I
Okay.
do. Um, and I do like to play the other side, but I'm totally picking up what you're laying down when it comes to the dynamism. Making up words right now.
Is
Uh,
that the word?
I don't know. That's why I said it so because I know it is a word, but I don't know if it's appropriate. It's been a long day, and I've
I'll
done
look
a
it
lot
up.
of writing today. Um, but yeah, it's just yeah. I didn't really enjoy or appreciate the enemy variants that we saw until, for me personally, until I popped the difficulty level up to like 3. Um,
Okay.
because they did have enemy variation then, but I wasn't sure if it's because it was the higher difficulty level, or let me take that back. I knew it was because it was the higher difficulty level, but I wasn't sure like how these other enemy types were going to reveal themselves in the game. So
Yeah.
like, what did they call it? The adjudicator.
I'm not sure what you're referencing.
There is an enemy character type that to me that reminded me of Sentinels. Um, and you said their name, and I just can't remember it right now.
For Avengers?
For Avengers, I'm sorry. When we played together, you said their name, and I made a joke, and then you made a joke, and we were like, "Ha ha ha!" And I was like, "But seriously."
Like the android guys, the synths,
The android
or
guys that could shoot Cyclops like white beams from their eyes.
mm, I can't say I remember that
You
immediately.
called him a T-1000.
Oh yeah, that guy. I think it does start with an A, but I don't. It'll come to me. We can keep on.
Yeah, yeah, we'll keep on keeping on. But yeah, that's again, that's when I first noticed some enemy variety, and I was, you know,
Yeah.
I
It's got
know,
some weird name like the Adaptotron or something like that.
yeah,
The Adaptonoid. Was that it?
maybe that sounds about it.
Yeah.
And I know that so the waves of your little enemies aren't what's the draw there. The draw is going to be your Marvel villains. Um, but you only see one of them in the game that they in the gameplay that they gave us, and it was for the Hulk. And so even at that point, I was,
Mm.
I'm not the biggest Marvel fan. I only know so much, and so when I saw Abomination, I was like, okay, he's taller than the Hulk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this guy is unique, therefore we should pay attention to him.
And
Like in
his
that way?
yeah, his character model was good, I
Yeah.
but because I have no frame of reference or connection, like real connection to most of these specific Avengers. I was just like,
Hmm.
okay, he's a Hulk villain,
Yeah. Can I
and
talk about the Hulk for a moment?
Hulk smash.
Okay, I'm going to smash the Hulk. Uh, Never in the time while you are playing Hulk is it ever okay for you to feel the need to hide behind cover away from bullets. But you
That's a
have to
good
do
point.
that as Hulk.
Hmm.
There is never a time where you should feel like you have to hide because the enemies are doing too much damage to you. You are the goddamn Hulk.
This is a true statement.
You know what I mean?
But then he would basically be almost invincible as far as the game goes.
He's the Hulk.
I know, but again, game, health meters, HP bars, that
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
there's a total disconnect there.
Yeah,
And
it
I,
kind of beats
I
the
felt
character of the
it.
Hulk down.
Yeah. I felt it when I played as the Hulk. And after I my I went to go play a human character because I can get away with feeling more like a human because the Hulk feels like a human with a gigantic ass hitbox, and that's kind of what he was. And two, it like there wasn't anything special to draw me back to being Hulk, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Vast, where'd you go?
Haha, I was talking on mute. I was saying I agree with you in that I freely admit to making my own fun with Hulk. So by the end of the 2 rounds of beta, like I was enjoying playing the Hulk, but it's because I was doing my own catchphrases and I was making my own call outs and I was doing this and this as opposed to like fully being immersed in smashing as the Hulk. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. You had to make your own fun in a video game that is made for fun.
Hmm. That being said, though, I really enjoyed playing Iron Man. I got into Iron Man, and I expected him
Yeah.
to be my least favorite character to play.
Can you tell us a little bit about Iron Man? Like what made him your favorite to play as?
Well, he was the first. So my friend really enjoys playing Kamala Khan, so he enjoys her comic book character, and
Uh-huh.
so we were fighting over Kamala. It's like, okay, you know what? I'll just pick Tony for a little bit, first name basis with all the Avengers. You know how I do.
Yeah.
And once I started unlocking some more things on his skill tree, that's when I started to actually see how much the developers were trying to help expand your skill tree and make the characters feel different. So with uh, what they did with Iron Man is they split his ranged attacks into 3 separate attacks. So you have your repulsors,
Hmm.
rockets, and lasers, right?
Okay.
You can switch between those three on the fly. Um, you had a long range attack for all three, and then you had melee attacks or laser melee attacks. So you can spin around like a saucy laser ninja and slice and dice your way through the map. And it was fun. Like it was really fun. And flying with um, Iron Man, once I adjusted the controls a little bit, was fun, and it fed that freedom of mobility itch that I have, and that's one of
Hmm.
my game drivers. And one of the things that I still mourn Anthem for, because I really enjoyed
They'll make a
flying
comeback.
around. I hope they do. I honestly hope that they do. But yeah, I really enjoyed flying around in that game, and despite the fact that the ceilings in Marvel's Avengers were pretty freaking low for me, um, I enjoyed flying around in that one on those maps too.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't really say much about the actual verticality because I played as Black Widow the whole time, and she, is human and has guns and all of that.
Hmm.
I just, I never saw a need to switch characters. I never felt the need to explore in that game.
Hmm.
And so, as far as the level designs or anything like that, we did get one city that they called Eastern Seaboard, which is generic city uh, at
A
night.
little
It was
disappointing.
completely void of life except for
That was a little disappointing. That was a multiplayer map. Did we say that?
yeah. It,
Um,
it yeah, it was a multiplayer map.
and for that one, like, how do I put this? After playing most recent Spider-Man and all the care and attention that they put into New York, Um, Walking around in Eastern Seaboard didn't feel the best. Um, I
Yeah.
liked things inside of the map. I thought that the respawn rates were pretty good. I liked that they gave you options to go high for characters that couldn't fly. So there were places to grapple onto and explore. And the map was actually way bigger than I thought. The first one or two times I ran that map with friends, we didn't we were just running around. We didn't even touch on like all of the question mark things that they had for you to do. So
Hmm.
the map itself felt way larger, and there was way more stuff to do than I had anticipated, and so that was a night. It was a pleasant surprise, which like it shouldn't have been, but it felt like a pleasant surprise. Like, oh, there's more stuff to do here. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't know.
But from another angle, that's not what I'd want to be surprised about in a
I
game.
know.
Oh,
I
hey,
know.
Yeah.
I can actually explore a little more than I thought I'd be cloistered up into. Like that, that kind of puts a bad taste of expectation.
Yeah. And honestly, would you want a larger map if it doesn't have anything to interact with?
It'd be open nothingness, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Just for the sake of existing there.
Yeah.
So that comes down to where my issue with the game as it stands right now. And of course, disclaimer, this is just the beta. It's a Marvel game. It's a Marvel property, and knowing how crazy they have been with keeping secrets from their own cast and crew filming the movies, I can imagine that they're really trying to hold some spoilers and surprises back from us gamers. But so like that's just like a little disclaimer. But y'all, that the story that they're trying to tell is going to be very hard for me to get through as a solo player because again, I'm not necessarily their target audience as I'm not. I like the Avengers, but I'm not an Avengers fan, and I'm not an Avengers comic book fan, in that I don't know the canon and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's single player, which was honestly really disappointing to me. That as far as we know right now, it's only going to stay a single player campaign. So that's a standalone like series of events that you can't play with friends. The
Which you would
co
think is a little contrary to, the Avengers, a group of crime fighters, as opposed to like, well, there's like, at least one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and that, I mean, like, there's a whole like tangent. Remind me to ask you this question about the Batman Arkham series influence on this game. But we'll come back to that later. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um,
I will not make that promise.
I just think I think it has like a heavy influence on the development of this game, if only because it was an industry standard, and that's why like it the Avengers game as a single player experience, like the single player campaign experience, may be the way it is, as opposed to a
Mm.
multiplayer, as it being conceived as a multiplayer campaign experience. Does that make sense?
I guess.
You don't think that could be
I
possible, or am I just reaching? I like to
I
reach.
I don't I don't think that they should have, if they did, I don't think that they should have looked to the Arkham series as a benchmark for how to run their campaign. Because uh Batman is a solo character.
Yeah. Through and
For
through. For a group of
yeah,
people that are not solo, they work together all the
yeah.
time. So it
Like
seems very contrary to that game
yeah,
type.
the Avengers is built around the group.
Mm.
Batman is built around Batman and occasionally one, maybe
Yeah.
two other people.
Everyone else except everyone else is an accessory to Batman and what
Yeah,
Batman does. Whereas the Avengers, that is not the case.
I'm pretty sure at one point he stuffed Robin into his little utility belt.
You take that back. You take that
Deploy,
back.
Robin! It's like it just comes popping out of one of the little boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
You take that back.
Go, Gadget! Attack Robin!
Yeah. I don't think that that's a fair comparison.
Look, I don't think it is either. I'm just putting it out there. That is a piece of the speculation zone. But I'm just looking. I'm looking for reasons why.
Yeah.
This game isn't a multiplayer campaign. And maybe they'll
Honestly,
surprise
there
us.
might
Like,
just not be a good reason other than bureaucratic didn't want to do it and they didn't.
yeah, but that hurts.
It does hurt,
That
but sometimes
hurts me.
the truth hurts fast. The truth hurts.
The truth does
So
hurt.
Vast, let me ask you this question, and Arcadius too, if you feel so inclined, please jump in. If you included more people in the story, how would you be able to pull it off without designing a level that is just like the multiplayer levels? How would you be able to deliver story impact with a half-a-mile long canyon with some dudes interspersed and maybe a chest here and there?
Well, I mean, that would be hard. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a multi-point facet answer, and the question is that given the state of the game, you can't just pump more people in and expect to have more fun, because now what they'd have to do is scale either the difficulty of the enemies in the space provided, or increase the enemies in the space provided, which would just turn that thing into a clusterfest in the canyon. So you're pretty much stuck with not increasing the load of people and or AI any more than it is, or if you did increase the load, the levels have to change. They can't stay the way they are. But considering most of that is probably not going to change, and all they want to do is add the occasional new hero here and there, the game's really not catered or centered around large parties playing together.
Well,
Or even multiple parties playing together.
So here's the thing, though. They have expressed an interest in having this game be like a live service game, right? They
Heard that
plan,
one.
they plan, but everything that, like, if you purchase the base game, you get everything. Like, there's no DLC or additional monies. So true. But I mean, that
But
doesn't make
we're
it better. I'm just putting it out there.
We're at their behest in order to get these things that would otherwise dramatically improve the game as far as playability and groups. So, I don't know. To me, they do this as a means to not have to plan out ahead, and they can short-sight stuff on the cheap and get the skins and get the rough bones and structure of the game together to be functional, and then turn around and go, now what was it that everyone was complaining about we didn't have? We'll just go ahead and add that. This is like everything is afterthought, and if you build a game on afterthought behind the guise of live service, that to me is what doesn't make the game fun.
If you do that, also, and the reception is bad up front, there's a heavy possibility that even if it is changed, people will not come back to enjoy your product. You won't make any money off of it.
It's like you already done goofed. You've already shown that you presented a piss-poor performance up front. So what does everyone else have as an expectation of what you will do moving forward? And quite frankly, the expectation is not that great. And if that's the foot forward they're going to put and expect everyone to just gobble up their, presentation and what they shove out, that's kind of honestly belittling the players that they're selling this to. So that's just my opinion, though.
Yeah.
It kind of treats the player base like a pack of morons that'll just accept whatever they're spoon-fed, and the whiners will drive the biggest changes that they will spend focused money on to make the changes for, and everyone else just gets to go along for the ride as the live service of the company listening to the players.
The oh, okay. I totally totally following you there, and picking up what you're laying down. I think the other thing um, is that um, the co-op that they have in the game right now doesn't really feel satisfying. Scorch, what do you
Yeah.
think?
Uh, so the most enjoyment that I got out of playing this game was when we were playing multiplayer and I was making fun of the game.
That's
And
when you know.
That's not a good thing out of the gate immediately. The most entertaining thing that I had running through my brain while playing a new game was the nitpicky bullshit that I could pick out and make fun of.
The derpy stuff.
Yeah.
Or maybe even not the derpy stuff, just the weird canned, here it is stuff that you would expect that you could almost script with your, half asleep.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm gonna keep making this comparison. This game would have been groundbreaking in 2002.
That's so sad.
Honestly, though, I don't know how to fix that problem. I don't.
I don't think they know either.
I-
Because it's a live service, and they'll get around to fixing it eventually.
Well, this falls into a complaint that I've had with several games. Those were broken games, and I'm not saying this one is broken because I don't think it is. I don't think it is. But
It seems solid. It didn't seem broken.
Mhm. But my complaint is, and when we talked about Destiny and we talked about Anthem and a couple other, those are just the big ones. I enjoyed how they wanted me to play. Overall, I liked the combat system. Overall, the one thing that I saw that may be missing is like team combo moves. But that's something that could be there in the skill tree. We just don't know yet.
Yeah.
But I don't think that their multiplayer has enough there for replayability and variance. And I know it's a little difficult because it is like a brawling game. Like it's but it just doesn't feel as good as others that I've played.
I'll totally agree with you.
And it's gonna be really, it's gonna be really weird to say, but I played the most recent Streets of Rage game, and it's much simpler. Your characters do feel like your character moves and combos can feel pretty similar, but it felt much better to play that game.
Yeah.
I really had fun.
I'm gonna bring something up to you, and I would like y'all's opinion. And it's regarding another super flop that we played over the last couple of years. I'm going to bring up Mass Effect Andromeda.
So,
When you first...
honest opinion, to me that wasn't a super flop. What you think of as super flop, but it was definitely kind of weird in some areas.
Yeah.
No, keep going.
Okay. Anyway, when we first booted up that game and played it, something that Bass told me about the first level of that game stuck with me. She said, when I played through the first sequence of Mass Effect Andromeda, I thought, yes, this is how I want my sci-fi to feel.
Yeah, I did say that.
This is how I want my intrigue to feel. This is a good hook.
Okay.
And in Marvel's Avengers, their hook was the Golden Gate Bridge scene.
Yeah.
Did that hook feel the same? Was it
Not
as
at all.
good?
To me, that'd have been like another day at the office Like, you went to go get coffee and the building next door blew up. Okay, well, here we go. All right, we're on the train again, fellas. This has happened now. We gotta undo this nonsense and, find the guy who did it. Like, that's to me what it felt like.
Yeah.
Going in for your morning coffee and going, oh, so that's what we gotta do today. Okay. And then off you go.
Yeah.
I will say no, with the nice caveat that I'm sure there is some, yes, some cinematics that would make it feel a little bit more pressing to heighten the tension a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe. Possibly.
Possibly, maybe.
It might do a little bit better to not have to punch the Taskmaster in the face another time by pressing square as he's flying around the gigantic Golden Gate Bridge set piece.
You punched him a lot of times. Like,
Did.
an unusual amount of times you punched that guy in the head that he didn't think of, hey, I'll perform another barrel roll so I can stop getting punched in the head, and he just keeps flying and keeps getting punched in the head.
Yeah.
So, again.
And I'm sure the way that they geared that was an attempt to show off the set piece falling over and like
Sure.
blowing up and the setting and all of that. But can we, segue, talk a little bit about the boss encounters that we had and we experienced? Like Taskmaster, and I know, Arcadius, you didn't get far enough for this, but Abomination.
Or the big tank. Did you play the big tank?
I don't think I fought the big tank.
Just Taskmaster for me, and it was lame. Roll, pew 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 pew, roll, pew 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 pew, roll. I just sat there and repeated that until he died, and then he went to his next sequence of, hey, now I'm gonna throw grenades at you. Okay, grapple, punch, punch, punch. Turn around, grapple, punch, punch, punch.
So this goes to this is like a little bit of the comic nerd in me, right? But part of that I feel is because, and this is like a long-standing, comic discourse thing, but Marvel has a problem with their villains. Outside of like a couple of them, they're not particularly well known or have the kind of personality that makes them fan favorites. At least that's what I'm able to see. And I mean, like, specifically, not
in games and like movie universes. In the comics, they very much have a larger dynamic, but that's not present.
I'm not talking about the X-Men, and I'm not talking about and I'm not talking about Spider-Man. I'm talking about like Marvel. Avengers. So like, who are their big villains? Because like the big villains that I know are like from the series that we just talked about, like the Rogues from Spider-Man, Doc Ock, and the Green Goblin, and Creed? What's Creed's name? Sabretooth from the X-Men, and Magneto, and then like Doctor Doom.
I guess you could think about like Thanos or the Watchers or something like that as like an Avengers specific threat, I guess.
But like Thanos is literally just now in the comic book history a major villain that has consciousness in our popular culture.
I'm trying, Bast. Okay?
No.
I
mean,
some of the other villains would have been like Bullseye. Another one's going to be Galactus, which I think is coming up later.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Galactus.
And Red Skull was pretty straightforward.
Oh yeah, Red Skull.
Galactus.
Let's see here. Some of these I've never even heard of.
Well, and so I just bring that up to say that those are supposed to be your like familiar villains or recognizable villain encounters. But
Or
that.
at least the ones I'm looking at on the list, some of these I don't recognize.
And speaking specifically of Taskmaster and Abomination, those are supposed to be like kind of your hooks in the game. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not comparing, okay? I'm not comparing. But when I think about hooks, I think about the first boss battle you fight in God of War.
Yeah, Baldur.
Oh man.
That, still to this day, as someone who hasn't completed the game, I still rank that as one of the highest, like, like boss battles that I've fought in that franchise, but just in general, like it was worth paying $60 just to play that sequence. Like it was such a good fight, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And it
It was
really
a great hook. It
it's
was
a
an
great
outstanding
hook.
hook.
Yep.
And so I'm not seeing that. That's what I'm saying. I'm just not seeing
Yeah.
that in the same way that I will give Avengers just like a little bit because they have showed off the Golden Gate Bridge several times now, so it's kind of old hat. So it didn't feel as exciting to play because I had seen it before. However, it's still not that exciting to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't lead a hook with Taskmaster.
Especially not punching him 80 times in the head.
Yeah. As he's flying around. Like,
Oh yeah, let's not
he's
forget that.
maintaining altitude and spatial awareness for like
Flying
a good
through falling-
5 minutes.
Yeah, flying through falling debris, at the same time dealing with someone punching you in the head.
Yeah.
At the same time not losing any equipment strapped to your body.
He's the real hero. Let's talk. Let's
Yeah.
open
He's
this up. He's
going-
the real hero.
He's going to reduce pollution to 0.
Oh, God.
I see what you did there.
You laid the hook. I had to finish it fast.
Yeah, that's-
I had to do it.
Just reel it on in. That's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, yeah. Oh. Yeah, I didn't. And for Abomination, I feel it was kind of like a reskin of the Taskmaster fight. Like, you fought him, you whittled his health bar down a little bit, and then he, like, breaks you through the stage and you go somewhere else. And then you whittle him down a little bit more and he has a new gimmick to try and kill you with. And then you whittle him down a little bit more and then a finisher pops up and you finish him. That is the same. It's like an algorithmic way to run a boss fight. And
The
without
same
playing
way every time.
without playing the big tank boss fight, I feel like that is the way every single boss is going to be handled in this game. And that's not dynamic, that's not new, that's not fun for me.
Yeah, and especially when I think about the most recent Spider-Man game and how like you had that one fight with Mr. Negative or whatever his name is on the bus, the train. You know what I'm talking about? And like you had all these shadows come out while you're just riding the train, or when you had that really trippy sequence when you were, was it Scorpion who, like, juiced you up with some kind of hallucinogen, and like the scenery was shifting and raising and falling, and you were like walking on walls sideways and all that kind of stuff. Do you remember
Yeah.
that? And I just don't see them having that type of boss fight or level design. I could be wrong, but I don't really see it from what I've seen so far.
Yeah. I don't know that they would be able to do that per se with the tools that they have. And it might be that the way that they have it is like limited by their toolbox now that I'm bringing it up, because you have to be able to translate single player to multiplayer, multiplayer to single player. And that means that you are going to be moving the characters around in a similar way. And when you have, speaking from a multiplayer perspective, when you have a whole bunch of people, you cannot show them the same thing at the same time. Like, you can't have a sequence with a whole bunch of people of a trippy bus ride trying to fight Dr. Negative because you're fighting off hallucinogens that Scorpion pumped you with, and expect it to work with 4 other Spider-Men there,
Yeah.
you know? And in that same way, you wouldn't be able to translate that to single player because you're working off of the similar mechanics of the multiplayer. It's got to be able to move back and forth. And I don't know, it might be an engine thing, it might be an architecture thing, or it might be that that's not the feel that they're going for in this game, and it just might not be. It might just be, we want to make a brawler, and we want these people to have all of these moves, and you'll be able to pick up each character and instantly know how these characters work because they're all same enough that you won't have a bad time trying to learn a new character. And I think that's more what they're going for. You know?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I'm getting you. So, I had one more thing that I wanted to bring up. Let me see if I can remember what it is.
Did it have anything to do with the Arkham series?
No, I kind of made my case with the Arkham series and
Okay.
maybe why it's single player, or why Marvel is single player. Um, we talked about the characters that are in it. Have you guys seen anything online regarding gameplay and stuff?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either. I haven't watched anyone's reviews or anything like that. I was just wondering. I know that you enjoy Alana Pierce and a couple other outlets, and I was wondering if you had heard anything.
Yeah. Um, the first the first gameplay I actually saw of this was Alana Pierce's gameplay that she posted. And she made a whole bunch of the same things that she pointed at a whole bunch of the same things that we were talking about, like the boss fights were very samey, and it didn't feel like you were making any headway or anything like that. And that huge amount of exposition that they have right after the prologue of like the fall of the Avengers and we're reclaiming Stark Industries and all of that, the way that they have that huge amount of exposition, like 5 minutes of exposition, is not a good way, or at least this is what she said. It was not a good way to deliver information to the player.
Can I tell you, I don't even remember that.
I mean, I don't think it was it was as drudgerous, to use another fake word, um, than how she was saying it. But I mean, you gotta set it up somehow, right?
Yeah. And I do feel like there is some, of course, there is some like in-game story exposition that we weren't privy to because of the beta like status.
Yeah, definitely. Arcades, you got anything to add?
Nah, I kind of agree. I think it sums it up on my behalf.
All right. Well, are we done?
I don't think I. Well, let's just.
Unless you wanted to tag that Arkham aspect again, but
No. That I mean, that's it. I Scorch caught me early when he asked me if I would play this game without my friend, and I was. The answer is probably not. I really enjoyed playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance on the Switch because that gave me a really broad section of characters. I could play Spider-Man or Spider-Gwen or Miles Morales or Venom or Wolverine, even though he's not my favorite. X-Men. I could play Storm on that game. You know, I could feel like a really badass woman.
Uh huh.
And that might be Black Widow for some people, but that's not for me. Um, and yeah, the character, the lack of character choices right now is one of those things that's holding me back. Um,
Okay.
the fact that there doesn't appear to be any X-Men coming into the series is really holding me back. Although there might be, some X-Men have been part of the Avengers at various points of time.
Yeah. So, Arcadius, what's your verdict?
I will not be spending my money to get that game. To me, I think I would be bored with it after just a couple, like once I have played through with all the characters once, it would be a one and done game, never to be picked up again.
Yeah.
And I would even be hesitant to pick it up and play it in co-op, because once I've played it all the way through by myself, the expectation of knowing exactly where the enemies are going to jump out and the exact move sets, it's very scripted. There's not as much fluidity, and I would not be as inclined to enjoy it, so I won't be getting it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be purchasing this game either. The way that they have everything super formulaic is not really what brings me to video games anymore. It used to be, but it's not now. And I don't think any amount of character roster is going to change that for me, especially with the gameplay that they presented in beta. And I don't see the gameplay changing at this point.
Yeah. Pretty
Yeah.
much punctuates it.
That being said, this weekend there is another open beta. If you are still here listening to us, we try and tell you what we think and give you a good idea of what to expect when you're going into these, so you don't waste your hard-earned money. But if you have a different experience, come back and tell us. Like and subscribe. We're gonna try, or I'm gonna try and pull Arcadius through the multiplayer experience, just so we have, like full opinion. Although I don't think it's going to change any much, but we're doing our due diligence.
Yeah.
And like
So
crazy man, hi.
I guess that wraps up our reaction.
Mm-hmm.
It would indeed.
Shall I take us out? Vass, do you want to do it?
Please take us out, because I may be fighting Ruiner Nergigante right now.
I see what you're doing.
Alright, well, this was a reaction podcast to Marvel Avengers Beta. If you liked us, you can subscribe, listen to all of our previous podcasts, interact with us however you want. We have a Twitter that we're active on, @NerdOnlyGaming. You can find us here. If you didn't like us, why are you here? Why are you listening to us? I'm Scorch. We had Arcadia Zero and Fast Empires, and that will be it from us today.
Toodles.
I don't know how much longer this is going to go on, because it seems like Mouse is going to have to run to safety before cutting a stream, and there is a Nergigante in her screen.
Oh, I can do that right now.